And we're back. As humans, we tend to absorb the opinions of others that we respect, whether that's family, that's friends, sometimes, public figures, lovers, whatever. Sometimes what can feel like wisdom is just fear wrapped up in a bow, you know? And I'll tell you a story. I remember being in a job that I had outgrown. And I knew it was time for me to leave because I was like, there's no upward mobility here. I'm never going to get paid what I really want. I started applying for jobs like one does. So I came across this job that would double my salary. I didn't have any vacation time left, right? I didn't have any more sick days for the year. And I'm like, look, which, if we really talk about that, I think that's a little crazy concept because like life happens. What do you mean I don't have a day? But anyways, someone close to me said that they didn't think it was a good idea for me to call out of work. And I'm like, but this interview could change my life. You know what I mean? Like if I had stayed here, I'm clearly not happy. I'm underpaid, overworked. It just seems like a no-brainer. But from their perspective, they thought it was risky and that I should, play it by the book and do the right thing and da 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 da. And granted, like, yes, do the right thing to a degree. You have to take a little risk. So I kind of blocked that out because I was like, I can't listen to this. So I prepared like a mad woman before this job interview. I'm talking I had like notes all on the wall. Like that murder board where they put up all the facts and clues? That's what I had for an interview. Nobody died, but it was for the interview. Well, maybe I killed the limiting beliefs. I was like, I'm not listening to them, whatever. And that same person actually picked a fight right the night before the interview. But I was like, I'm so determined that I was like, no, 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 I'm not letting this happen. But to me, that was the external noise that you have to kind of quiet. Um, and I ended up, separating myself from the emotional environment that I was in and aced the interview and I got the job. If I listened to that person, or if I let that stop me, like I wouldn't be, I wouldn't have gotten the job. I wouldn't have been able to double my salary. Personally, I hate living with what ifs. That's why I say I don't know if I'm ready for a kid yet. In that moment, and this was years ago, but I realized that you don't need to continue asking for external validation. And now sometimes you can share things with people and then they may or may not project their own fears onto you and you have to be mindful of that. Like you have to remember what you can pick from that, like just or, take their advice or comments with a grain of salt because that's just for them. And what's that saying that they call you crazy until it's done? It's like one of those things, you know? But you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in yourself that you don't even hear that. You're just like, okay. Mm-mm. I believe that limiting beliefs is just fear wearing like this, I don't know, authority to have some power, right? Some badge or some uniform. And it's just projections. You know what I mean? You have to get to that turning point where you really go inward, asking yourself, is this thought or belief mine? And if it's not, then you don't need to wear it, right? You don't need to hold on to it. And eventually that helps you slow down and make better decisions because you're not outsourcing your intuition. Remember a couple videos back where I was saying, like, as women, our strongest superpower is our intuition. It really is. And because I find every time that I don't listen to my gut in anything, it always goes left. And I'm like, damn, damn, damn. I say that to say I'm also not a fan of crowdsourcing clarity. Like, I don't know. Like, I've seen where people ask questions like, oh, do you want to see me do this? You want to see me? Like, no, make the stuff that you want to see and do. And then you'll find your people. You know what I mean? Because then when if you live by it, then you're going to die by that too. I'm not saying, give your audience what they want. But I think if every single detail has to be funneled through someone else, how would you function? How would you know what you actually believe in? What are your core values? What do you believe in? You know what I mean? And then a really big thing about maybe someone else's limiting belief, it could just be a lack of information or exposure, right? Growing up in an immigrant household, I think our parents and our grandparents, they want the best for us, right? And sometimes they might not be aware of what else is out there or how you can be successful in other avenues aside from like traditional things like that. And it's like it's not to hold it against anyone or to be like, oh, like you don't believe in me or anything like that. It's just they might not know, and that's okay. But if you feel it in your heart and your spirit that what you're working on or what you're doing is where you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to be doing, like I said, it's crazy until it's done. Within reason, within reason. So, what happens when you stop listening to other people's limits? Well, for one, you'll definitely be more confident, right? You're trusting yourself more. You kind of foster alignment with new opportunities, right? So if you are sitting there and we are what we think, we are what we eat. But if you're thinking like, oh, this will never happen, or you're saying to yourself, this will never happen, then it's never going to happen. So why would you want to put those limits on yourself? I'm not giving you hope core, but why would you want to do that? Emotional stability is another one too, because often when we're worrying about what's next or we have anxiety about, the future and things like that, you don't really get to sit with yourself because you're listening to all that external noise. When you really sit with self and tune into what your vision is, what your purpose is, life gets a little easier. Okay, one more thing before we wrap. Not every opinion deserves access to your decisions. Okay, I'm gonna let that one sit. So, the more you trust yourself, the less permission that you need, and the further you can go with your dreams. So, let's wrap. To get started on all of this, it's okay to pause and ask yourself whether you believe in this or if this is someone else's beliefs that are being projected onto you. And if you figure out it's the latter, it's okay. Just shake it off, dust it off. For those that journal, I journal every day, and it's been very, very helpful. You could write down that belief. That could be a nice prompt, and ask yourself, and you just kind of go through the emotions and the thoughts of whether you believe it or not, and then ask, who taught you this? I'm telling you, that question in therapy gets me every time. I'm like, I don't know actually. Who taught me this? And then there lies my homework. Really ask yourself, what would I choose if no one had an opinion on my life? And then go from there. So yeah, that's a good one. I think I'm about to go journal now. So yeah, thank you for watching. Remember to keep putting yourself first and don't listen to those limits, okay? What did Blue Ivy say? I ain't never seen a ceiling in my whole life. I don't remember. I'm probably off key with that, but it's all right. All right, bye.